Have you ever experienced that peculiar feeling, that strange, indescribable void that seems to linger within you, even when everything in your life appears to be in perfect order? It's that subtle yet persistent sensation that something essential is missing, something you can't quite name or define, but its absence feels profoundly real. This curious emptiness follows us through life like a shadow, sometimes fading into the background of our busy days, other times suddenly emerging with surprising intensity during quiet moments of reflection. What's most puzzling about this feeling is that it often makes no logical sense. You might have achieved all the milestones you once dreamed of, the career, the relationships, the stability, the recognition, yet still find yourself gazing out at the horizon, feeling a mysterious longing for something more, something different, something that seems just beyond your grasp. This sensation has been documented across cultures and throughout history, appearing in poetry, philosophy, and religious texts worldwide. It's a universal human condition, this strange homesickness we feel while seemingly at home. The most compelling aspect of this phenomenon is how it persists despite our best efforts to fill it. We chase achievement after achievement, relationship after relationship, experience after experience, yet that subtle void remains stubbornly present, immune to our attempts at satisfaction. In my decades studying near-death experiences, I've encountered something remarkable about this emptiness. Those who have journeyed to the threshold between life and death often return with a profound insight. This void is not a defect or a problem to be solved, but rather a clue, a cosmic breadcrumb trail leading us toward something of immense significance. What these experiencers describe is not finding something new, but rather remembering something ancient, something they've always known at some deeper level of awareness. They speak of recognizing a love so vast, so complete, so unconditional, that nothing in our earthly experience can possibly compare. And here lies the paradox. The love you've been searching for, the connection you've been yearning for, already exists. It's simply not here, not in the forms and expressions you've been trained to recognize as love. The void you feel is not the absence of love, but rather the echo of a love so complete that its memory creates contrast with everything less than itself. This is why no earthly attachment or achievement fully satisfies. They are reflections, not the source. They are droplets, not the ocean. Think about those moments when you felt most at peace, most whole. Perhaps while witnessing a breathtaking sunset, during deep meditation, in the flow state of creative work, or in moments of profound connection with another being. What if those moments weren't random accidents or chemical fluctuations in your brain, but rather brief recognitions, fleeting remembrances of your true nature? What if they were momentary alignments with that greater love that exists beyond the confines of your current perception? This is where the wisdom of near-death experiencers becomes particularly illuminating. They consistently report not discovering something alien or unfamiliar, but rather remembering something they've always known. A state of being, a quality of love, a sense of belonging that feels more like home than anything they've experienced in physical existence. And upon returning to their bodies, they carry an unwavering conviction that this love is real, more real than anything they previously considered reality. The void you feel, therefore, is not a mistake or a flaw in your psychological makeup. It's not a sign of failure or inadequacy. It is, perhaps, the most important sensory system you possess, a built-in compass pointing toward your authentic nature. It is the soul's recognition that it exists in a state of temporary amnesia, having forgotten something essential about itself. This amnesia is not accidental, but purposeful. It's an integral part of the human journey, allowing us to experience separation, so that we might eventually remember connection with new appreciation, new depth, new consciousness. When you feel that inexplicable emptiness, that longing for something you cannot name, you are experiencing the first stirrings of remembrance. Your soul is whispering to your conscious mind, reminding you that there is more to reality than what your physical senses perceive, more to your identity than your personal history, more to love than its conditional expressions in human relationships. This whispering grows louder in quiet moments, in stillness, in nature, in profound connection. anywhere the constant chatter of everyday concerns momentarily subsides. It's as if the universe itself is calling you home, not to a physical place, but to a state of consciousness, a recognition of what you have always been. The ancestral memory that lies within us runs deeper than our conscious thoughts, older than our personal experiences. It's a remembrance carried in the very fabric of our being, perhaps encoded in what some traditions call the soul. This memory speaks to us in the language of longing, in moments of déjà vu, in dreams that feel more real than waking life, in the inexplicable recognition we sometimes feel when encountering certain places or people for the first time. The ancient Greeks had a word for this phenomenon, anamnesis, which Plato described as the recollection of things the soul knew before birth. He suggested that learning is not acquiring new information, but rather remembering what we have always known at some deeper level. This concept appears across philosophical traditions worldwide, from the Hindu notion of remembering our true nature as Atman, to indigenous wisdom traditions that speak of ancestral knowledge carried in our blood and bones. What's fascinating is how closely these ancient philosophical insights align with what modern near-death experiencers report. They consistently describe not entering an unfamiliar realm, but returning to a state of being that feels deeply familiar, a recognition so profound it often brings tears. Not tears of discovery, but tears of remembrance. I knew this place, they say. I've always known it. This suggests something revolutionary about our existence, that perhaps our natural state is not the limited consciousness we experience in daily life, but rather a vastness, a completeness, a connection to everything that exists. The love encountered in near-death experiences is consistently described as unlike anything experienced in earthly relationships. It's not a love that demands or expects. It doesn't fluctuate based on behavior or circumstances. It has no opposite. It casts no shadow. It simply is, complete, unconditional, all-encompassing. And here's the profound insight that emerges from thousands of these accounts. This love is recognized, not discovered. It feels like home, like the most natural state of being, like remembering rather than learning. This suggests that we carry this memory of perfect love within us, that it forms the very core of our being, the foundation of our consciousness. Like fish born in a small pond who dream of an ocean they've never seen, we carry an imprint of this greater reality within us. This ancestral memory manifests in various ways throughout our lives. It's present in those rare moments of perfect contentment when everything feels exactly as it should be. It surfaces in acts of spontaneous compassion that transcend self-interest. It emerges in profound artistic expressions that move us to tears for reasons we cannot fully articulate. It appears in dreams that leave us with a lingering sense of having touched something real beyond the dream itself. These moments are not anomalies or delusions. They are brief alignments with our true nature, momentary remembrances of what we actually are beneath the accumulated layers of conditioned identity. The void we discussed earlier, that persistent feeling that something essential is missing, can now be understood not as an absence to be filled, but as the beginning of remembrance. It's as if part of you recognizes that your current experience represents only a fraction of what existence truly is, only a limited expression of the love that constitutes your fundamental nature. This memory creates a contrast between what you currently experience and what you intuitively know exists beyond your present perception. The implications of this understanding are profound. If the love you seek already exists as your essential nature, then the spiritual journey is not about attaining something new, but about removing the obstacles to recognizing what has always been there. It's not about becoming something different, but about remembering what you truly are. This explains why external pursuits never fully satisfy that inner longing. They're addressing the symptom rather than the source. No amount of external validation, achievement, or even human love can completely fill that void, because what you're truly missing is the recognition of your own nature, your connection to the whole. Near-death experiencers often return with a certainty that transcends faith or belief. They know this greater love exists because they've remembered it, recognized it, reunited with it, however briefly. Their accounts suggest that this remembrance awaits all of us, If not through the dramatic circumstances of a near-death experience, then perhaps through the gradual awakening that comes from listening to that quiet voice within, that persistent longing that keeps reminding us there's more to reality than what our limited perception currently allows us to see. Let's consider the nature of love as we experience it in our everyday lives. The love we know is beautiful but inherently limited, bound by conditions, expectations, and the inescapable nature of our separate identities. We love conditionally because we experience ourselves as separate beings with boundaries, needs, and vulnerabilities. Our love fluctuates with moods and circumstances. It dims and brightens in response to how others treat us. It carries the shadow of fear of loss, rejection, abandonment, betrayal. This conditional nature isn't a flaw or failure, but simply a natural expression of love within the constraints of separate identity. Yet something within us intuitively recognizes these limitations. We sense there must be something more, something beyond these boundaries. Great poets and mystics throughout history have glimpsed this greater love and struggled to capture it in words. A love without opposite, without condition, without beginning or end. What's remarkable is that near-death experiencers, many with no prior spiritual background or interest, return with strikingly similar accounts of encountering precisely this kind of boundless love. They describe it not as an emotion, but as the fundamental fabric of reality itself, recognized as their true home, their authentic nature. This creates a profound paradox in our earthly existence. We seek outside ourselves for a love that actually constitutes our essential being. We search in relationships, achievements, and experiences for what already exists within us as our true nature. We've simply forgotten, temporarily lost access to this recognition through the necessary limitations of physical existence and separate identity. This forgetting isn't a cosmic mistake, but apparently an intentional aspect of the human journey. The separation allows us to experience relationship, to know connection against the backdrop of disconnection, to value unity because we've known division. Like a fish that doesn't recognize water until momentarily lifted into air, we come to appreciate our true nature through the contrast of its temporary absence. The love we seek in our relationships, the acceptance, security, validation, and connection, are all reflections, echoes of a more complete love that constitutes our essential being. The challenge is that we've been conditioned to look for love only in its limited expressions. We've been trained to recognize it only in specific forms: romantic attachment, family bonds, close friendships. We've learned to depend on others for something that actually forms the core of our own existence. And because no limited expression can fully satisfy our soul's memory of unlimited love, we experience persistent longing, moving from relationship to relationship, achievement to achievement, experience to experience, always searching but never quite finding the completeness we seek. This pattern continues until we recognize what near-death experiencers discover, that we've been looking in the wrong direction. The love we seek doesn't need to be attained or achieved. It needs to be remembered. It doesn't need to be found. It needs to be recognized in its countless reflections all around us. This understanding doesn't diminish the value of human relationships. On the contrary, it transforms them from desperate attempts to fill an inner void into celebrations of connection, expressions of a love that already exists in fullness. When we stop demanding that others provide the unconditional love that can only come from reconnection with our true nature, our relationships become lighter, freer, more joyful. They become opportunities to express love rather than desperate attempts to receive it. This shift in understanding explains why those who have near-death experiences often return with dramatically changed priorities and perspectives. They no longer seek love with the same desperate intensity because they've remembered, if only briefly, their true identity as expressions of that very love they were seeking. They've glimpsed what mystics describe as our essential nature. Not separate beings seeking connection, but connected beings temporarily experiencing separation. What occurs during a near-death experience reveals something profound about the nature of consciousness itself. As the brain's ordinary functioning is interrupted, something remarkable happens. The filters and boundaries that maintain our sense of separate identity begin to dissolve. What emerges isn't chaos or confusion, but a vastly expanded awareness, a consciousness no longer confined to the limitations of individual perspective. In this expanded state, experiencers consistently report encountering a love that differs fundamentally from anything they've known before. Not greater in degree, but different in kind. This isn't merely an intense emotion, but something they describe as the fundamental reality underlying all existence. They perceive this love as the basic material of the universe, more fundamental than matter or energy. What makes these accounts so compelling is their consistency across cultural backgrounds, religious beliefs, and historical periods. People who have never heard of near-death experiences report strikingly similar encounters with this all-encompassing love. These aren't subjective interpretations constructed after the fact. They're immediate recognitions in the moment, often accompanied by the certainty that this state of being is actually more familiar, more real than their ordinary waking consciousness. Words consistently fail them upon return. It was like coming home, they say. I recognized it instantly. I've always known this somehow. The recognition described isn't intellectual, it's total, immediate, and beyond doubt. It's not learning something new, but remembering something ancient. This raises extraordinary possibilities about the nature of consciousness and identity. What if our ordinary waking consciousness, with its sense of separate selfhood, is actually a limited subset of a much vaster awareness? What if the boundaries we experience as our identity are not walls, but filters, necessary for physical existence but not fundamental to our true nature? What if the love we've been seeking outside ourselves is actually our authentic state of being? Near-death experiencers often describe a moment of profound realization that the love they're encountering isn't separate from them. It's not something being given to them or directed at them from an external source. Rather, they recognize it as what they have always been, beneath the layers of forgetting that physical existence requires. They describe dissolving into this love, not as annihilation, but as remembrance, as returning to their true identity. This understanding transforms their relationship with existence itself. Fear of death often vanishes because they recognize that what they essentially are cannot die. The desperate search for love and acceptance diminishes because they've experienced the love that constitutes their true nature. The need for external validation fades in light of this profound self-recognition. This perspective helps explain the consistent reports of life review during near-death experiences. In these reviews, people re-experience their actions not only from their own perspective, but from the perspectives of everyone affected by their choices. They feel the pain they've caused others as if it were their own. They experience the joy they've brought to others as if it were happening to them. The boundaries between self and other dissolve, revealing a profound truth, that at some deeper level, we are not separate from one another. We are individualized expressions of a unified consciousness, temporarily experiencing separation. The most remarkable aspect of these experiences is how they transform people's lives afterward. Those who have glimpsed this reality often return, with dramatically altered priorities and perspectives. Material success becomes less important than meaningful connection. The desperate pursuit of validation gives way to genuine service. Fear diminishes. Compassion expands. Many report a sense that they've always known these truths at some deeper level, but had forgotten them in the demands and distractions of daily life. The veil briefly lifted during their near-death experience, allowing them to remember what they've always known, that the love they seek already exists, not as something external to be attained, but as their fundamental nature waiting to be recognized. If the profound recognition experienced during near-death experiences represents our true nature, how might we access this awareness without the dramatic circumstances of nearly dying? How might we live with the consciousness of this original love while still engaged in our everyday lives? The insights from thousands who have returned from the threshold suggest several approaches. First is the recognition that glimpses of this greater reality are available to us constantly, hidden in plain sight within our ordinary experiences. Those moments of unexpected peace, inexplicable joy, spontaneous compassion, or profound connection aren't anomalies or accidents. They're brief alignments with our true nature, momentary droplets of the ocean we actually are. Learning to recognize these moments, to pause and fully experience them rather than rushing past, creates openings for deeper remembrance. Contemplative practices across traditions, meditation, prayer, mindful awareness, essentially train us to notice these openings and gradually expand them. They quiet the constant chatter of conditioned thinking that maintains our sense of separation, allowing deeper awareness to emerge naturally. What's remarkable is how consistently near-death experiencers describe the same essential truths that contemplative traditions have taught for centuries: that our true nature is love, that we are not separate from one another, that fear is based on a misunderstanding of what we actually are. The difference is that experiencers don't arrive at these understandings through years of practice, but through direct recognition during their brief journey beyond the boundaries of ordinary awareness. Their accounts offer profound validation of ancient wisdom while simultaneously demystifying it. The great spiritual teachings aren't esoteric philosophies, but practical descriptions of the nature of consciousness itself. The understanding that the love we seek already exists as our essential nature transforms how we approach life's challenges. The void we feel is no longer an enemy to be eliminated, but a friend guiding us toward remembrance. Our relationships are no longer desperate attempts to fill an inner emptiness, but opportunities to express and recognize the love that already exists in fullness. Even suffering takes on new meaning when viewed from this perspective. Rather than random misfortune or divine punishment, it becomes part of the necessary contrast that allows recognition, part of the temporary forgetting that makes remembrance possible. This doesn't diminish suffering's reality or suggest we shouldn't work to alleviate it. Rather, it places suffering within a larger context that makes it bearable, meaningful, and ultimately transformative. How might we live differently with this understanding? Perhaps by holding our identities more lightly, recognizing them as useful but temporary expressions rather than ultimate realities. Perhaps by trusting the voice of longing within us, not as a problem to be solved, but as a compass pointing toward our true nature. Perhaps by recognizing that the unconditional love we've been seeking in others actually constitutes our essential being. This perspective doesn't require belief or faith. It invites exploration, direct experience. It doesn't ask us to deny our current reality, but to recognize it as a partial expression of something vastly greater. It suggests that the spiritual journey isn't about becoming something different, but about remembering what we've always been beneath the necessary forgetting that physical existence entails. The veil that separates us from this recognition isn't punishment or mistake, but purposeful limitation that allows for relationship, for contrast, for the joy of remembrance. The love you seek already exists. It forms the very ground of your being, the essence of what you are. It's not here in the sense that it can't be found in its complete form within the necessary limitations of physical existence, but it's always available in glimpses, in reflections, in those moments when the boundaries of separate identity momentarily thin. Your longing for it isn't failure but the beginning of remembrance. Your intuitive sense that there must be something more isn't delusion but recognition. The void you feel isn't absence but contrast. The background that allows the foreground to emerge. The silence that allows the music to be heard. In the words of an ancient teaching, what you are looking for is what is looking. The seeker is the sought. The love you've been searching for throughout countless experiences, relationships, and achievements is not something to be attained, but something to be remembered as your essential nature. And in that remembrance lies freedom. Freedom from the desperate search. Freedom from the fear of inadequacy. Freedom from the illusion of separation. This understanding doesn't remove you from life, but transforms how you experience it, not as a struggle to become complete, but as an opportunity to express the completeness that already exists at the core of your being. The journey continues, but with a profound difference. You're no longer searching for home. You're gradually remembering that you've been home all along.